Hello and welcome to Artifacts, the monthly show on City Cable 34 in which we talk about the arts in Minneapolis. And as usual, we've got some interesting guests. Later on, we'll be talking with Jan Johnston, who's an actor and an artist in town, and we'll be talking with her about what it's like to survive as an artist, as an actor on the front lines in Minneapolis. But to start with, my guest is Keirn, and she's with the Minneapolis Institute of Arts, and we're going to talk about some of the recent changes and things that are going on there. Chris, welcome.
Welcome. It's
Great.
good to see you again.
What is your job title? I think it's a long one.
Well, it is. It's Director of Marketing and Communications.
Okay, now, many years ago, I once worked in the same building you're in. I used to work there. It was a lot of fun.
Oh, you did. You did.
Yep. But there were a lot of changes that have happened at the Institute of Arts in the last few years. And my impression is that a lot of those came about when a new director was named and he had some new ideas.
Yeah.
Can you share with us some of those changes?
Well, our new director's name is Evan Maurer, and I think he may have been there when you were there years ago, because he started as a curator, and he went to school here, and he came back, and he's a very warm, open, engaging individual who basically brought those same qualities to an old stone institution that had been perceived as cold and institutional. And he's very different than that, and he proceeded to literally open the doors, both literally and figuratively.
Well, I know the 24th Street entrance was opened again, at least for part of the year, and that's continuing.
For the summer. And people are thrilled because people remember years ago coming up those wonderful front steps, and now they can do it again in the summer. So.
When I was a student, that was of course, this was before the Kenzo Tange, was that the
Kenzo Tange
architect that did the additions?
Yeah.
Nice addition, but I missed those great institutional stairs that went up there.
Yeah, everybody loves that. It's such a beautiful
Now,
facade.
most people probably don't know that the reason that isn't year-round is probably more to do with the art inside than any other
Yeah, it's
issues,
basically for climate issues, because keeping the doors open, brings in cold air, basically in the winter. So it's to protect the art, and it's to keep costs down too. So there's a real reason
for heating
to do
and
it.
things.
Sure,
Well, of
yeah.
course, yeah, because those are big doors.
Yeah, those are
and I
big
suppose there's an
doors.
access issue too, because those stairs are not exactly accessible to folks in wheelchairs or something like that.
Well, we're handicapped accessible on the side, and so that's how we
Right.
could do that in the summer.
Which is the
but-
newer entrance. and
Yeah.
things, so you can always get in the building.
Right, of
So,
course.
sure.
And you can get in the building for free.
Well, now that's something I just learned. I knew that it was a free institution now, but I had no idea that it's one of the very few free museums in the United States.
Yeah, I think it's actually one of two. I could be wrong, but
Yeah.
the National Gallery in Washington is free, and we're free and have been so, I think, for 2.5 years, because basically we believe that we are very much the same, that the public library is a resource. In that way, we're an art resource. So we're the community's art museum.
Has opening the doors literally and figuratively like that and getting rid of it was a nominal fee even then, but
Yeah.
getting rid of that, has that
Yeah.
changed your attendance or who's coming in the doors?
Oh, it certainly has changed our attendance. Our figures are up. I think more people are attending, not only because it's free, but I think because we have better exhibitions and we have more educational programs and a lot more to offer people. So our attendance is up. And in fact, we just welcomed our 1 millionth visitor since we went free. And I think he came through, we weren't exactly sure, but it was on a Thursday about 2 weeks ago.
So 1 million folks in 2.5 years?
Yeah, yeah.
Sounds like a lot of traffic coming
It
through
is
there.
a lot of traffic.
Any
yeah.
problems with that? I mean, are galleries getting crowded? Or?
No, because it's so big. Every time I take somebody around the museum, people are always, amazed at how big it is and how, extensive our holdings are. And
Well, now
how many
that is one of
wonderful
those
things.
amazing facts and figures. How many thousands
A factoid.
yeah, we'll put it on the air later. How many pieces are in the holdings of the Art Institute, or about, I suppose?
Well, there's over 80,000 works of art, which is a lot of works of art. And there's about, I could be wrong, but I think there's about 2,000 on display at all times. So some of the permanent collection is rotated. So you may, for example, we have over 500 imperial robes. And we have room to have 3 out at a time, so they rotate the robes.
Now,
so
I
you
suppose
can see
that would be in
different robes.
the Oriental
Right,
collection, the
Oriental
Oriental Gallery there.
Yeah.
I went into the building a couple weeks ago and was privileged to have a little tour kind of behind the scenes. You're
Yeah.
opening up a lot of new space.
We are.
How did that come about?
Well, we're in the middle of a capital campaign to basically open a lot of new galleries to house more permanent collection, so that the public can see more of what we have, of what they own, actually.
Okay, and as I understand, you increased your what's it called, your storage or whatever.
The storage facilities.
That's underground now
Yeah.
and out under the old Toro Mall, which maybe
Mhm.
doesn't have that name anymore.
Mhm.
Maybe it does.
No, it doesn't, in fact, and there's a wonderful new plaza out there which will have some artwork, and it has a wonderful pavilion on it, and under there is where most of the works of art will be stored.
Okay, so now this is the plaza that you're talking about between kind of the wings of the building, and Children's Theater kind of comes around another edge, and then the
MCAD.
College of
right.
Art and Design?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. And it looked like you increased some parking right in there too?
A little bit,
Little
not,
bit.
not a whole lot.
Well, you still have your ramp.
Yeah, we still have the ramp,
Okay.
and we you know, have parking, of course, on the street, but the parking that's in the back is mainly for staff and
I
staff
see.
visitors, so we didn't increase that very much. We kept the grounds pretty much the way they were.
Yeah, so these
Yeah.
lots of access though. I mean,
Oh,
from the doors
yeah,
opening
lots of
up, free
access.
admission, parking's
Right.
pretty easy and stuff
Right.
like that.
Open doors.
Now, we're talking on a show that's airing in February. What's
Mm-hmm.
the big exhibition you've got going right now?
Well, Imperial Silks just came down, which was wonderful. And on February 2nd, we're just getting the gallery, the Dayton Hudson Gallery, ready to put in American masterpieces from the Cincinnati Art Museum, which is an interesting project because Cincinnati is closing for a reinstallation also. So they're traveling some of their American paintings.
So while they're
and-
down, they're kind of sending up some of their
yeah,
better-known works.
lending things out.
Sure.
And it's small but beautiful. It's you know John Singer Sargent and Mary
Mm-hmm.
Cassatt and a lot of American painters that people know and love. So it'll be a wonderful exhibition.
And that opens about when?
February 2nd
Okay.
and closes, I believe, March 18th. And also during that time we have a wonderful African show up, which is the first African show of its kind. And it's one of the world's premier collections of African art here. It's beautiful. It's
Well, now
really
that's another
exquisite.
curatorial area that I understand you're really increasing the space.
Mm-hmm. It's important to us because I think for too long we were perceived as the art institution that represents art from white guys, you know, and that's something that we'd like to break that misconception because we are a museum that showcases art of all cultures.
Well, I know you reach into the community in a lot of different ways. In the last few years, I know you've had, I think they're called Family Days with the Hispano community, the Native
Yeah.
American community, and probably others. And
Yeah.
so that's part of this whole idea of opening it
is.
up and getting more people involved.
It is. It's important because this community, obviously as a big city, has a large Native American population and a large black population and a large Hmong population. And we are there to represent those traditions also.
Right. Other programs that you do, in addition to the exhibitions, you have an education program that teaches and workshops with a lot of young people and I think adults.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about some of the other things that you do and how your institution addresses what I would call arts education, that sort of stuff, some of those programs?
Yeah, we've got under, excuse me, under Kate Johnson, who's our education chair, and she's been there quite a few years. She's developed this fabulous education program that includes classes for kids. There's a picture person program where they take out reproductions like these and show classrooms, teach classrooms about art, so it's kind of taking the Institute out into the classroom.
So that's off-site? I mean,
That's
you get out
off-site,
there.
yeah.
Okay.
And it's incredible because you see a lot of kids come into the galleries with their parents and they recognize things. And parents come to us and say, you know, I thought I knew a lot about art and my child is teaching me. So that outreach into the community and into the schools is critical because the schools have lost a lot of funding, as you know, for their arts programs.
That's going to be a
and we have
topic we want
yeah.
to talk about on this show sometime is
Yeah.
arts education, what it means. So the institution is stepping up and saying, we're going to do our part.
We're the resource, and we see it as a need not only to do it in-house, but to go out into the community too. That's critical.
Right. Do you still do those expertise clinics?
Oh, expertise clinics, we love them.
Yeah.
We do them every first Friday of the month, and people bring in pieces that they want to know about. And we can't tell the value of them, but we can give you a little bit of background and tell you.
So
you
that's
know.
a service that the
Sure, and the
Institute of Arts-
curators are out there behind the
Yeah.
tables looking at people's pieces. It's fun.
Can we talk about some of the collection areas? I mean,
Sure.
we might not hit them all, but obviously there's paintings.
Yeah.
And what else do you have? Prints and drawings?
Yeah, there's paintings, prints and drawings, photography, decorative arts, which includes furniture from various periods in the history. Shoot.
What else? It seems like you're expanding some of your more modern
Sculpture.
You've
Yeah.
got some of the more modern. I tend to think
Oh,
of
and then African, Oceanic, and New World cultures, of course,
right,
is
which
a
is the one that's
separate curatorial.
expanding.
Right.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then also housed in there is the Minnesota Artists Exhibition.
Yeah, and that's
program.
wonderful. We get a lot of attention for that because people in Minnesota love it. They love to see Minnesota artists showcased, and especially at the Institute. I think it's fun.
Yeah, I think that's probably a real credibility builder and a validating kind of experience for a lot of folks.
Yeah.
In the visual arts world, there's so many pockets of artists and individuals who work in that field, but you tend to see them all there on the openings for the MAEP.
I know, yeah, they're lively openings.
That's right.
Yeah.
Issues on the horizon, anything new that's happening, whether it's in your institution, or are there new trends in museology? Are we expecting to see younger people coming in? I mean, what's...
Well, I think the biggest trend is for museums to finally recognize that they do that people of all colors and nationalities are represented in art. Mm-hmm. And I think it's kind of become a cliche, this diversity term. Mm-hmm. But cliche or not, it is the thing that museums are talking the most about. And in fact, the Association of American Museums in April is having a conference, and a lot of the topics are about diversity. And I think museums are exploring how to truly achieve that and not just have it be lip service or just something that they do to satisfy somebody else,
so
but
really,
actually make it a valid
right, so
effort.
Participation, not just representation.
Exactly.
It's not just somebody on a wall, which is nice in itself, but...
On all levels, in hiring,
right.
in representation of art, and in audience and visitors.
Well, that's a topic I know that's of concern to lots of arts organizations, large and small, and you're certainly in a leadership position, being one of the larger arts organizations in the state, and get a lot of public money and private. What, from your vantage point, what's your relationship with other parts of the arts community in Minneapolis and really in Minnesota? I know you have music concert series in your galleries. You support people that way. You have a film series in the Pillsbury Auditorium every month. How do you relate to other artists and arts organizations?
Well, we just recently, the one thing I can think of is the James J. Hill not library. Help me out.
Oh, well, I was thinking of the Reference Library in St. Paul, or
the house.
The house, where they have a collection.
Right. We had a collaborative show with them, and also in a couple years we're going to be doing a statewide effort to have an exhibition called Minnesota 1900, which will showcase the arts and crafts movement in Minnesota, and we'll be working with a lot of smaller historical societies and places and small museums to do that. So, you know, I think we are not only a resource for our visitors and for art lovers, but we're a resource for other arts institutions also. And I think we're opening our doors more for that too. So this open doors theme is kind of touches all of us in all divisions.
And with a historical edge to it too, going back. We've got time, I think, for one more mention, and that is you've got an exhibition up now of the two Lucretias.
Yeah, the two Rembrandt Lucretias. It's an old story about a woman who was raped and had to and killed herself. It's a very horrible story, but it's been told in many art forms, and we have the two Rembrandt Lucretias. One is our own. It's a very important piece that we own, and the other one is from the National Gallery, and they're hanging together for the first time.
In hundreds of years.
Well, I don't think they've ever been together.
They went out of his studio separately.
Yeah, right, and now they're together. They were at the National previous to us, and then they're here, and it's breathtaking. They're really beautiful. And
they're both on view through this month, I would say.
No, I think they're on view through May.
Oh, for a couple months.
Yeah, people will have a long time to see them. Great. And they're off in a separate room. It's very dramatic. It's really worth seeing.
Chris, we could keep talking, but
yeah,
we're going to move on. Thank you so much for joining us on Artifacts.
Great.
Well, we'll be back in a moment with Jan Johnston, but first we'd like to show you this little art fact. Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed that art fact. In this segment, we've got a guest that I've been looking forward to having on the show, Jan Johnston. She's an actor in town. She does a number of things to survive in her acting. She does print work, commercial work, and we're going to explore that in a little bit. Jan, thanks for being with us.
Nice to see you again.
Great. And I should explain, too, that we're old friends. We play softball together with a bunch of folks in the theater world.
You betcha.
They get together and don't have too many rules, and not too many people get hurt.
Not too many.
So you are an actor. I guess that's how I wanted to introduce this. I mean, you get out on the legitimate stage. And
yeah, I, in fact, trained early on when I was young. I went to the Children's Theater and did some of the summer classes. John Clark Donahue was there, and Wendy Lair, and Bain Belkey, and it was a very, very interesting time in my life. And what followed that was getting out of theater and going on to the university. I moved to Europe, lived abroad for several years, and when I came back in 1986, I decided I need to follow my bliss. I need to get back into this stuff because this is really where I feel the most centered. And decided to try commercial acting to see if I could make any money, to see what it was about. I decided I didn't want to be 85 years old and regret not having tried something.
so when you were in Europe and in other places, you were not doing acting or commercial work?
I actually taught school. I taught English. I did translations. I managed a restaurant. I traveled and lived. And
so I suppose some of those life experiences come to you now in your acting and things like that.
They do.
How old were you when you started children's theater?
Oh, gee, I knew you were going to ask that.
Give or take.
8, 9, something like that,
Okay,
probably.
so-
And what I did after that was my mother kind of, with her assistants or pushing me a little bit, said, hey, there's this thing called Twin City Institute for Talented Youth. You want to audition for that? It's a summer thing. And it was, I ended up getting into it after auditioning, and it was dance and creative expression. And that was incredibly stimulating. I'll never forget that time in my life.
So you've touched in different disciplines. You've
Right.
done movement as well as acting.
Right. I took 7 years of ballet and with the Minnesota Dance Theater School, Lois Holden, years ago.
Wow.
And-
I didn't realize. So you're from the Twin Cities?
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
from here originally.
Okay.
And then when I came back in '86, I called a couple of the agencies, and they gave me basic information. What do I need to do to get into this stuff? And I found a photographer and got a headshot taken, which actually I brought
Let's show
some
a few of
stuff.
these things.
Okay.
Because I think what might be interesting to some of our viewers is, what is the business like? I mean, you made a cold call to a couple agencies.
You bet I
and
did,
said,
yeah.
I'm interested, how do I do
I
it?
knew nothing, virtually nothing. I didn't really know anybody in town that was doing this either, so I had to go it on.
Find a photographer.
Exactly.
Get a headshot. Now,
Right. They
this is a
said
headshot.
to, in fact, this is what I started out with. This, where do I hold this? Here?
That's good. Right,
Okay.
turns this over.
She said a black and white 8x10 headshot. Of course, I didn't know how I'm supposed to represent myself. She said, well, are you a mom type? Are you the young girl, young woman next door? Are you a spokeswoman? Are you an executive type?
And what would they classify this as?
I guess this is mom. sort of,
Mom, you
but
think?
this is old, you know.
Okay.
So
That's
I
an
ended up
earlier
doing
one.
this. This is the earlier. And then I had to update because I didn't wear my bangs like that anymore. And I did this one. Excuse me.
And the reason that's important is that if a potential client sees this with bangs, that's what they think they're going to get.
It's a misrepresentation.
Right.
Right.
So it's not just casual, well, I wear my hair differently and you work that out on the phone.
No,
They're
they need to
looking at a
know
book or
that
something.
when they hire this face, this is what they're getting.
Right.
You know,
So if
they
you've lost a
can't-
tooth or you've got new,
If I dyed my hair red and it was,
Yeah.
2 inches long,
so you get a new shot?
know,
Yeah,
yes.
but that's a little expensive.
Exactly. So in fact, this is what the photographer ends up doing, is taking a contact sheets.
Okay, now hold those still. And what you've got
This is the
there
old one.
are, looks like a couple dozen different images of you, same outfits, well,
Yeah,
a couple of different bosses.
outfits. Yeah,
And then what, you poured over that to see which ones you'd be interested in putting to the agency?
exactly. And the agents will say, this one has a better look, this one is more marketable.
So they were part of that discussion?
Right. In
Okay, so-
fact, the one that helped me the most was a woman who was not in the union. So I started out non-union,
And
as
now
everyone
you-
does, and now I'm in the AFTRA
So
union.
that's an interesting idea. You start out non-union, what, a little more accessible, easier to get some credentials?
You
or-
have to start out non-union,
Okay.
Basically, you try to get in to the agencies, and if you have a look that's marketable, if you can fit into a slot and they have a need, they'll say, okay, come on in, give us so many headshots. So you have to get your photograph taken, you choose the headshot, you take it over to Copies Inc., you get 100 made, and this is all an investment,
Yeah, so far you haven't earned a dime.
No.
Yeah.
Plus you have to know a little bit about makeup and your hair and your body and what looks right on you.
Now, all these
and-
things, are you working on this alone, or do you have...
No, I was doing it alone.
Okay, so you don't have like agents and handlers telling you what
No.
makeup, what look,
No,
what hair, and all that?
But I took a class over at the Guthrie. Jay Riley taught a class called Auditioning for the Camera.
Mm-hmm.
And through that, I met other actors that were also starting to feel this out and see what they could do, if there was a way of making some money.
So you were all in the same boat at that time.
Basically. Some people had more experience in
Right.
theater and some had less.
So was it supportive? I mean, in a way you're competitive too.
Very, yeah. No, I find still, it's somewhat competitive, but my colleagues are there to root me on, and I'm there to root them on too.
In other words, once you get the call,
Yeah.
you know, all bets are off. I mean, you've got it, and they're
Exactly.
rooting for you.
They're saying, hey, that's great. And
Okay.
someone may feel bad, but you know that it may be your turn next time around to lose out, you know. And basically, I did a commercial last August where it came down to 2 women. And I felt for her because I knew what it would be like to be in her shoes, you know. 2 women and 3 men, and we're waiting and waiting to find out who gets this. And
And one of each sex we're going to get it, or
one
just
of each sex, yeah.
okay.
In fact, I brought in a clip I can show you.
Yeah, in a
perhaps
minute,
later.
we're going to look at some of the things you've done in video or for commercials
Right.
that people might see on their screens.
Right.
Before we do that, let's look at some of the print work that you've been part of.
Okay.
On the easel here, we've got a pancake ad.
Oh, actually, it's cake. I think
Oh, it's cake, you're
mix,
right.
You know.
Yeah.
Pillsbury. This is just a woman who, it's me, who eats cake, and there are different kinds of cake for the same person or
Now, is
different
this
people.
the
or
same shot done as a composite, or are there was 3 different shots?
They
of you?
took 3 different shots. I'm not exactly sure what they did. I was the model. I stood there with my hand up like this, holding in a very unnatural position
This one right here.
this piece of cake on a fork and smiling, you know, just.
You do look like you may have seen something religious happening in the other
I
end
had
of
an
the studio.
experience.
Yeah, talk about following your bliss.
That's right. But you know, talking about that, I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
am following my bliss, doing what I'm doing. It's exciting. It's an interesting lifestyle. It's also, it can be real harried. I found out that I'm the kind of person that likes closure in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I like decisions made and settled. But I'm living the kind of lifestyle that is open-ended, that is not decided and settled. I'll come home from a restaurant job. I work at Goodfellows, the conservatory.
Kind of the classic artist.
Working in a restaurant to make
restaurant.
ends meet, right. In fact, there are other people in the restaurant that I work in that are also actors or, you know, writers or
industry.
artists. Anyway, I'll come home from my day shift, get to the telephone, agent says, we have an audition for you, or we have a go-see for you, which is for print. You have to just get a Polaroid taken, and they send that to the agent.
And that stands for
Or
Go
the-
See.
Go see, exactly. And so you have to get together, you know, get in the shower, make sure you look good, and rush over to the audition, fill out the form, stand there, do it, and then you wait, and you wait, and you wait to find out whether you got it. you
And
know.
that's all more of that investment on your part. You
It
don't know if
definitely
you're
is.
going to
You know, it's,
get the work.
it just kind of hangs in the air, but it's a lot of fun, too, because then when you do get the commercial, there's just a lot of energy.
Well,
And
maybe now's a good time if we could. I think we've got 2
Sure.
clips from commercials of yours that probably a lot of folks that are watching this show will recognize. Now, are
Oh, yeah.
either of these that you remember still airing, or are these?
one of them is the Channel 11 commercial is still airing.
Okay.
It's,
So this is a
snowstorm.
promo for the, what, Channel 11 News?
It's Paul Douglas.
Weather.
It's the weather.
Okay. So, and that's going to come on in just a second. And the second one, just to set it up, is
Kentucky Fried Chicken, KFC.
Okay.
I don't know which, are they both, is KFC first or second?
um,
I'm not sure, we'll see.
I'm
But
not
anyway,
sure
it's a
either.
KFC. It was
Okay.
filmed in August, and it was filmed on the top of the Grain Exchange building downtown.
right downtown Minneapolis.
Mhm.
Okay, so people might recognize some landmarks there.
Yes.
Okay. Well, let's see what we've got here.
Sometimes the weather is the news. That's why every hour, on the hour, 24 hours a day,
Somebody on South Hennepin Avenue, be patient. It's going
you
to be
can
a while.
depend on Paul Douglas and Carrie Levin News. For the weather information that really matters.
So, where are we going?
You'll see.
Come on, what's up?
We're having a picnic
Where?
here.
Up here?
Any place is the perfect place for a picnic with the KFC Picnic Pack. For only $9.99, get 12 pieces of extra tasty, crispy, or original recipe chicken, and your choice of any 2 large side orders, all for just $9.99.
There's enough food here for at least 4 people.
Well, I suppose I could call some friends.
Nah.
Offer starts Thursday.
Now, that's fascinating in a lot of ways. One, knowing you and seeing you there, and I'm sure folks that know you in different walks of life get interested in that.
Sure.
That's our skyline there, and the second piece there,
Right.
City Hall, I saw the IDS.
Yep.
Filmed at night.
Yeah, it was an all-day shoot, in fact. We filmed part of it in the studio. They had to build an elevator that opened and shut, and so it took part of the day to film that first segment in the elevator. And then they rebuilt the elevator on the top. So they had to crawl up this small stairway and build the whole thing. It took all day, and that was the evening skyline.
And meanwhile, what are you doing in between those shoots?
Well, we had
Did you
a
get
big
to go home?
feast.
Or
Oh, no.
Get to eat and you're on the
Yeah,
set or
and,
in transit?
you know, talk with everyone. There are a lot of people on the set. The client was there, people from the agencies. It was really a full day, lots of people, and
There were, what did I see?
makeup.
On that one, which, how many people were in front of the camera? A couple of you.
in front of the
Yeah.
in front of the camera.
Yeah.
2 of us.
And then how many folks,
There were probably 25 people
20 people
around.
supporting the effort of making that,
Right.
that
The
commercial?
client was there, all of the tech people, you know,
Yeah.
lots of camera people and people that are making everything work right.
Yeah.
It was fascinating.
And that was what, a 30-second, 25 seconds?
I think that's a 30-second spot. They were
Right.
both 30-second spots.
And it took a full day
Right.
just shooting, and obviously all the storyboarding and things that went on probably
Exactly.
for days before
Right,
that.
right.
Now, the first one, you told me something interesting. That was you in the car, and that was your car.
That was my car.
Now, how common is that they call you up and say, we want your face, we want your outfit, and we want your car?
Nothing was planned that way with
No?
the car. I drove up. This was a non-union spot. This is before I joined the union. So
Okay.
they're running this now for the second year, which
Oh.
is great for Channel 11. Not for me, because I won't make any extra money on it,
Ah.
which is the
Another
difference in
reason
being in the union
for
and being
joining, yeah.
exactly. But what they did was they said, "Hey, your car's perfect. This is the kind of car this woman would drive." I said, "Oh, that's fine," naively. So they have these enormous fans set up with big boxes of potato flakes. And on cue, they'd say, you know, okay, go, and then action, and they'd turn on the fan, pour the potato flakes into the fan, and that looked like snow. I think it looks fairly realistic. However,
Rather.
there was snow on the ground,
Real snow.
real snow on the ground. This was November of last 2 years ago now. And, you know, I got in and out of the car, and potato flakes are all over my boots and on the clutch and in my eyes and in Bob's eyes, the other actor. And as he's running, you know, between the cars, it was quite a fiasco, really.
Yeah.
I mean, it was interesting, but at the end of this thing, I had a large bill for Channel 11 because my car was completely clogged with baked potato. It's really funny,
That's a
you
very
know.
funny story. Try and explain that to the folks you might share your
They've
car with
never
or
seen it
something.
before. It's, what is this stuff,
Yeah.
you know?
That's a funny story. I want to talk a little bit, we got a couple more minutes to talk here.
Sure.
I think the industry is an interesting one. We're all affected by it. I mean, we all see commercials, we see ads and everything we pick up.
I know it.
You've talked about how you like it. What's on the horizon? I mean, where do you want to
Okay.
go with your career?
Well, I'm glad you asked that because this isn't actually the end. This is a means to an
Okay.
end. What I would like to do is pursue theater more. I have done some theater in town here, and I would like to do more theater and work on my voice and movement and character process and eventually do film. I would love to do some film. I've done industrials in town here, but I would like to, I think every actor would like to do film.
Is Minneapolis, the Twin Cities area, rich enough in all of these areas to support a career? I mean, you're staying here, obviously.
You know, I've talked to several people about that, and some people, in fact, one of the gentlemen who said, I think we held up an ad. Well,
Did we bring it? Maybe not.
maybe not. One of the guys I was talking to on one of the ads I did said he's been an actor in town for years. He works out at the Renaissance Festival, Mark Sieve.
Yes, yes.
And he said he likes Minneapolis so much, he doesn't want to leave, you know.
Right.
He enjoys the climate and the industry here, and he's able to make his living. Some people have said you have to go to L.A., and I don't know at this point what I'm going to do.
But, so it's an option for the future, but so far, you're not being pushed.
No, I'm not being pushed.
By a lack of
I have a
opportunity.
lot of things to learn
Yeah.
because theatrically I haven't done as much as I'd like to. I'm just really getting my my wheels going now.
One of the
And-
things you've been doing, I know, in the last year or so is studying improvisation,
Right.
getting your comedic talent together.
A little bit.
Now,
It's a challenge. It
Now,
is- we
where are you
talked about
doing
this
that, and
before.
what?
I recently took a class at Dudley Riggs,
Mhm.
and we started out by doing small group activities, exercises. We'd stand in a circle and we'd toss an imaginary ball.
Mhm.
Word
ball, that sort of thing?
associations, things like that. Get up on stage and they'd throw out a color and a couple of words. And 3 people are up on stage and you have to do something with it. You have to establish your who, your what, your where right away.
And you like that?
It's really interesting.
It's
It's
gonna be
very
part of
exciting
your,
to think very fast, think on your toes.
Part of your theatrical.
Sure. Everything is going to
Tools.
build the, the foundation.
Well, Jan, I think we're on the edge of some more conversation. I'd love to
I
have you
think
back
so, too.
sometime.
I'd love to.
But we got to go on with a couple more things.
Okay.
So, Jan, thank you so much
You're
for
very
joining
welcome.
us.
Good to
We'll
see
talk to you again.
See you at softball.
Sounds good. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this show. For the last few months, we've been airing some questions to stump you, and if you had the answer, you call in, we give you a fabulous prize. Last month, nobody called in with the right answer, so if you'd like to see this feature continue, give us a call at 673-2234. I believe that's the City Cable hotline. And stay tuned, because in 2 months, we're going to have a special hour-long version of this show. We're going to be talking about arts education with the panel. So in addition to our usual guests, we're going to have a panel. And if between now and then, between now and April, you would like to send in a question, call that same number, and it'll be on the screen. And we'll try and stump our panel, our arts education panel. We won't be able to take your question live, but they'll be able to answer it live on our tape. So thanks for watching Artifacts, and stay tuned for a calendar of events happening in Minneapolis. Hello and welcome to Artifacts, the monthly show on City Cable 34, in which we talk about the arts in Minneapolis. Later on in this show, we've got most of the faculty from the College of Art and Design, at least it seems that way. But first, we're going to start talking with Sarah Rotholtz-Weiner, who's an artist, and she's been selected to do a wonderful project in South Minneapolis, down on Hiawatha Avenue. Sarah, thanks.
Thanks.
Glad you're here.
Thanks.
Now, you are involved with a huge mural project on Hiawatha at about 42nd. Did I get that right?
Yeah.
And I want to know more about it and how you got selected and what the nature of the project is.
Okay. The Minneapolis Arts Commission put something out. They wanted a gateway, what they titled a gateway for the community, and they wanted it to reflect symbolic and cultural values. And I think that they meant it in a very limited way, and it was my I guess I tried to look at it more as an urban landscape project and as part of a larger cultural issue, and maybe it had a little bit more to do with Earth as a global issue and not just the community as a global issue. And I spent some time talking to the community, et cetera, and trying to sort of expand their views about these notions of what that place already was, and just trying to enhance all the wonderful things that existed already on it, rather than sort of impose foreign images or symbols just as a surface treatment.
So in part, you wanted to reflect some of what's there as an experience.
The mural is, well, I studied the way that the shadows fell on the mural because I had submitted a proposal a year prior to the second time. They had put this request for proposal out twice, and the first time I submitted, I did a very abstract rendition of just a cloudscape, basically, because I wanted the wall to recede a little bit in space. For me, it was always more of a sculptural thing rather than just a surface thing. And then when they came out the second time, I went to look at it, and they had washed the entire thing, which really clarified the form a lot more. And the first thing that I noticed was all these wonderful shadows that fell on it from the truss work and the cables and the structures around it. And I realized that intrinsically it already was a really special place, but then nobody was noticing how marvelous all these shadows were, and that there might be a real meaningful experience to be had just by bringing attention to what already existed there. And so that was the pursuit for this project. So I studied the way that the sun fell in it. I did models, computer models, and also physical models, and studied the way that the sun fell, created shadows with the existing structures on the face of it, and
this is a huge
it's gigantic.
space.
It's as big as a football field.
Actually, that big.
It's literally as big as a football field. The Harvard State's cooperative, who owns the elevator, is very interested in getting it into the Guinness World. Guinness Book of World. Yeah.
Sure. And they were the folks that prepared the surface, I
Yes,
think, that
they
you
did.
mentioned,
Yes, they
whitewashing
did.
it. Yeah.
Yes, they did. And
So they're excited about this.
they're thrilled about it. And one of the historic images you'll see on the tape later is actually an image of the elevator itself in the 30s when it was being constructed. So
And
they're real pleased that it's kind of this, it's reflecting not just what is, but it reflected, a little bit of their historic past, and it's kind of put them on the map of all the elevators along Hiawatha, which is actually, the recession shows along that strip. A lot of people don't think of it as a commercial corridor, but it is. And those elevators hold oats, and it's one of their slowest, although Harvard State's cooperative is one of the largest in the country.
Right.
And so they've made, they're a place on the map now.
Well, and it's
they're
a
real
major
excited.
corridor coming in from the airport.
It's
I mean,
definitely a
many
gateway,
visitors see
yes,
this,
and there's certainly hopes that Hiawatha becomes a real
right?
path.
And they're upgrading, I know, the street as a thoroughfare
Yes, they
into
are.
downtown.
Yes, they are. It's real
Yeah.
exciting.
Well, now, you'd mentioned earlier, before the show started, that this huge football-sized mural is being applied with very small brushes. Now, how's that
Yes.
being done?
The painters are wizards, first of all, in terms of their artistry, in terms of their sensitivity to the concepts of the project, not just the physical nature of the project, because they're sign painters. They just want to kind of, block it out and make big cartoons. And I've worked with them a lot to really have it look like a painting a lot more. We had to really get the kind of paint we wanted to get, but they are working with 2.5-inch brushes. And
It's a small brush for a huge elevator.
It's a real painting.
Let me interrupt for a second. We've got a tape that was shot, and let's take a look at that tape.
That'd
And
be
maybe
great.
as we watch it, you can tell us a little bit about what we're looking at.
Sounds
You
great.
mentioned some of the visual elements, and one of my favorite features is the color choice you made, the various choices.
Huh.
I like that a lot. So I think that's coming up now.
Great.
So how long has the process been in applying the paint?
Boy, it's been about 5 months.
That long? Okay.
Yeah, it's almost over.
Okay, now we're seeing,
This is a view from McDonald's parking lot.
okay.
And I always call this kind of view the window through, but you can see to the right some of the trusses that are reflected on the mural.
Mhm.
And those are literal shadows that hopefully when those, we haven't quite seen it at that time of year yet, but hopefully that'll just sort of ring true and the heavens will open when those shadows coincide with those lines. This is a side panel. I did sort of an analysis of the different aspects of the view of seeing this mural, and this is the one when you're coming up from Hiawatha. And these are images of the earth in shadow which reflect the mural itself, and these are historical photos. It's East River Road.
And so these images will be part of that panel.
They are on the panel. This is
it.
This is actually painted. That's the head house of the elevator. But you can see there's some different vantage points. This one is coming up Hiawatha, and then the rest of the face exposes itself when you come around. And so I was a little bit deliberate about showing a different image.
Okay, well that's wonderful. And I see now where the panel comes in on that one side. And this, before we forget, this is at 42nd.
It's at 41st and Hiawatha,
41st.
Between 41st and 42nd and Hiawatha. And you
That's
can't
what
miss
you
it once you get there.
I imagine that. How long will something like this last?
It should last quite a long time. It's got a UV coating on it, which will protect the colors. We painted it a little bit more darkly than I would have liked, except we wanted to, to have it look a little bit more vivid. But it should last about 8 years.
really,
We're
and then
hoping.
maintenance comes in.
I think they're just going to leave it, to be honest. That question was posed to me during the commission question and answers, and I think it'll be quite nice when it starts to fade. I think that's
Let it
just
go the
part of
natural way.
accepting what the place is, and I guess that's part of the underlying concept of the piece.
We've only got a couple minutes left, but I
Yes.
wanted to take a moment to talk about sort of public art or art in public places.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a favorite piece that's out in the Minneapolis area now?
I just think the urban framework's the favorite piece.
Yeah.
I think there's so many opportunities right there, and there's so much, again, attention that could be brought to these wonderful places and wonderful happenings and wonderful events in the urban landscape that it would be fun for artists to get the opportunity to just kind of start framing things and working with things and bringing attention and contrasting things with form and shape and color and movement, and I think it could create a lot more
Now,
exciting of a city.
you have another hat you wear as an architect.
Yes.
And how do the two disciplines influence each other? And I'm thinking of that because of what you just said about urban space as sort of a canvas, if I could say that.
Absolutely. Well, this piece, I think, originated from the notion of the urban landscape. It originally struck me as that, rather than a surface treatment, rather than a mural. It was always this wonderful, living, breathing thing. For me, some of the most exciting things about it is Hiawatha, and that people see this going at 50 miles an hour rather than standing there. Another great thing is that you drive up to McDonald's window and the mural's there. I mean, it's part of the it's part of the landscape rather than just this piece in a museum in a kind of a pristine setting. And I think that if artists can successfully work with really what exists rather than just sort of isolating an object, it could be real exciting. And I think that that's where the architecture comes in. It's just kind of an awareness of all the opportunities that exist, all the excitement that's happening already, or that needs to be enhanced a little bit. So.
Okay, one last question.
Yes.
What other part of the city would you love to see something going on in? Is there one other area you'd make a beeline for if
North Warehouse.
you could? North Warehouse?
Nowhere.
Okay, Sarah, thanks so much for coming and sharing
Thanks
with
a
us.
lot, Phil. I appreciate it.
See you again.
Yep.
And we'll be back in a moment with some guests, but first take a look at this interesting fact. And welcome back to Artifacts. And in this segment, we're going to talk a little bit with, as I said, I think most of the staff from the College of Art and Design. We've had a lovely chat just as we're getting ready here. We have with us today Russ Mrozik, who's the head of the design division at the College of Art and Design. Ari Munzner, who is the first-year program person. Hazel Belvo, who is in charge of the division of fine arts. And Tom DiBiazzo, who is with the media arts division. And we're going to talk a little bit about what they each do and the students, and to some extent, what the College of Art and Design is all about and who comes there. And I thought we'd turn first to Ari and ask you, what is the College of Design, or what is it trying to serve, and who is it trying to serve?
Well, anyone who's interested in the visual arts eventually finds their way to MCAD, as we affectionately call the Minneapolis College of Art and Design. And the first-year program is a program, well, if you want to be an astronaut, you first have to learn how to fly. And what we do is we bring you into that kind of orbit. Specifically, we deal with the eye, with the hand, with the mind, and with the heart. And we try to bring them together. And we do this in a very, I would say, kind of interrelated program of learning how drawing and color and painting, and learning how to work with materials and with photography and video and sound and computers and three-dimensional materials, and how English and history of art all come together to bring the heart, the mind, the eye, and the spirit in some kind of symbiosis. And we as faculty are coaches. What we do is we coach the student who may be out of high school, or who may be transfer student, or somebody who after many years decides what they really always wanted to do was to be into the visual arts. And so we work with people so that when they are ready to go into the advanced programs, which my colleagues are going to be talking about, that they're ready to really progress in their own self-development.
And this is an accredited college.
Oh, yes, since 1886.
So it's
We are a very ancient place of learning.
Yes.
We became accredited in 1958, the first independent college of art in the United States to be accredited.
And when you say independent, vis-a-vis,
Well, we're not part of a university. We are a sort of standalone, if you think of the computer analogy, a standalone college that is specifically professionally devoted to the visual arts.
and people of all ages, from what you're saying, I gather,
Oh, yes,
take up
everything
interest.
from people who go through the PESOP, which is the high school program. So we might have a 16-year-old in a class and then a 65-year-old in the class, all working together to develop their potential in the visual arts.
Fascinating. There's a very succinct outline of what the college is and who gets involved. Thanks. We'll talk about some of the other issues in a moment. I wanted to turn to Hazel and find out a little bit more about your division, which is, as Ari says, the fine arts, and at the advanced levels. What do you teach there? And
Well, the upper divisions, as we're called, begin at sophomore level, sophomore, junior, and senior level, because it's an undergraduate college. And in the fine arts, we have painting and drawing, which are the traditional, and sculpture, traditional media. We have, in our sculpture area, both hands-on fabricated sculpture and also some of the newer concepts of four-dimensional sculpture, installation, public art. Some of the faculty, some of our core faculty, Kinji Akagawa is a public artist he has a bench at the Walker Art Center that people know about, and he teaches public art, installation art, and critical studies. Michael Bigger is a sculptor who works in heavy steel, large scale. In the painting and drawing area, Elizabeth Erickson is a poet and painter, and she was one of the co-editors of the Warm Journal, is a professor.
I think that's something probably a lot of folks don't know, is that it's not only the various visual and plastic art forms, but you touch into poetry and other media as well.
She's teaching a course this semester called The Poetry of Paint, the painting of poetry, and which has been a very interesting course.
Who else do you
We
have
also
in there?
have Wendy Morris is a part-time person who comes in and teaches performance for us, which we has a rotating course. Jim Burpee, excellent painter, and Lee Bjorklund is an abstract painter. Jim's work is more allegorical, mythological in content. And then we have, in our printmaking, we have very wonderful printmaking area with a small press called Out of Hand Press, started at the college, that's known all around the country.
Okay, so that's an in-house
It's an in-house
facility
press.
then.
The students and artists around the cities and across the country come and publish works there. Judy Stone Nunley is the printmaker at Rank there. He's a screen artist and bookmaker.
Now, you mentioned two specific things. Our first segment in today's show talked about public art, and it's interesting that you talk and teach about that specifically. Now, share with me and maybe some of the audience about four-dimensional art.
It's a concept of sculpture that deals with time, time and space. And one of the courses in that area is called Intermedia, which in that course students specifically deal with time and space and a lot of issues and content.
Incorporate that into their artwork.
Yes.
Interesting.
Right.
I'd love to participate with that sometime.
Installation comes into that, which is one of the artists at MCAD who teaches in the visual studies program, Carol Fisher, also teaches in fine arts. Her main concerns are around environmental issues and installation. She works on the Alaska pipeline, the Alaska oil spill has been a major subject for her.
A theme of hers, okay.
I think the students at MCAD are very concerned about environment and issues surrounding the earth and preservation of the earth. And it's a very important issue for the students, for all of us, of course.
How long have you been involved at the college?
At the college, this is my third year.
Third year. Where'd you come from before that?
I was at the St. Paul Academy.
So you crossed the river.
Right.
All right.
For a long time.
Great. Well, we'll get back to some of that. I want to turn to Russ now and talk a little bit about the design division. And now, this is, after all, the Minneapolis College of Art and Design. So this is an integral part of what the college is all about.
In the design division, we sort of see design as broken down into sort of 4 different components. There's a lot of different aspects of design, but we've sort of concentrated on training people either for careers in graphic design or illustration or industrial design, or a new program which we've sort of begun this year, which is advertising. And so we've separated out those people that want to be graphic designers from those people that want to be advertising art directors. The program is set up that we try to train our students so that they come out of the school with immediate skills, so that when they leave school they can get jobs in various design offices or advertising agencies or work as industrial designers. So the program is set around trying to give them the necessary skills and the thinking and the problem-solving capacity to perform well at the end. But there's another job that we try to do, and that's kind of train students for where they're going to be in 10, 15, 20 years from now. Because who knows where design is going to be in 20 years. With just the advent of the computer, the way in which designers think about problems and the kinds of design problems they solve have already changed. And so another part of our program is to make sure that all of our students, when they leave, are familiar with being able to function on the computer. In the printing business, you can go almost all the way from conceiving an idea on the computer to generating it right off the printing press without ever having to have paper in front of you. So we try to kind of deal with both of those kinds of issues.
It's refreshing to hear that part of your concern is essentially job retention and training and the skills to survive as a designer or, I suppose, as an artist in the future.
Well, I think it's important because it's such a competitive field with so many schools in the country that train people to be designers. Another thing that I think we're concerned about is not only preparing them to be designers in the traditional sense, but using their skills at problem solving to go beyond. One of the kinds of projects that we were involved in last semester was 3M's acquisitions department came to us, and they're the department at 3M that looks at mergers, buying other companies, selling off companies, and they said, we need to do something to get our people, who are basically numbers people, accountants, to think more creatively. Because if 3M is going to make a major leap forward in time, they've got to work with the competition and begin to think about different ways of looking at their business. Can your designers help us get beyond our immediate boundaries? So we put a team of senior designers together to work with their acquisitions department to kind of open them up to different ways of looking at some of their problems.
So a practical application to the way you folks think.
Right.
To one of the more progressive industrial companies in the world.
Right, and it was very interesting for the students because they began to see how their abilities as designers could go beyond immediate board skills. On the other hand, we've also done public service type projects with an organization called DARTS, which is a senior service organization, and have designed one of their new mobile vans that are used to cart people around the city. Et cetera,
it's out in Dakota County?
It's in Dakota County, yeah. They came and wanted a design for one of the new vans they were buying.
So as I'm listening to all of you, the college is a kind of a regional resource in a lot of different ways. Not only for the given student, but...
Yeah. So that we get involved fair amount with outside organizations, nonprofit, people constantly calling for help.
Imagine. Well, there's a lot to talk about, but I don't want to miss Tom DiBiase here with the media arts. And what does that mean for the uninitiated?
The media arts is the newest division at the college. We're graduating our 6th class this coming year, and it's all of the study of film, photography, video, and related both still and time-based arts at the college. Students begin in our program after the first year on their way to the Bachelor of Fine Arts degree, and each student pursues work in film, photography, and video. They get a foundation experience in all 3 areas, both the craft skills and issues of theory and criticism and historical questions around these various areas. And then they elect to pursue a specific area as they move through the program in their junior and senior years. So they come from an interdisciplinary base.
Which probably helps them again in their future careers.
Yes, it's very important, not only just in terms of the technical skills that they have which are abundant when they graduate, but in terms of a kind flexibility and a thinking process that hopefully will serve them throughout their lives once they leave the college.
6 years. Have you been there 6 years yourself?
No, I've been there 17 years.
17 years,
right.
so something changed there about 6 years ago.
Yes, we were inside. We were, as design and the fine arts programs developed, media also grew at the same time throughout the 70s and into the 80s at the college. And it came to a point where we felt that, and that under actually Herbert's leadership at that time as dean, that it was appropriate to address the area as a contemporary direction in education and art and design, and to give it its own home and basis and curriculum.
So it was a response to what's going on
Very
in the
much so,
community.
very much so.
Yeah. Is that exciting for you?
Oh, it's very exciting.
Yeah.
And we've been the community aspect is important in the curriculum as well. Our students move through a lot of work that's very socially oriented by the nature of the projects that they do, and also they work as interns as part of the curriculum.
Oh, yeah. Hazel was mentioning kind of the engaged quality of some of the students. Now, have you been there 17 years?
Yes.
So you've probably seen some changes in the concerns of the students.
Yes.
Anything you could characterize?
I think now the students we're in a cycle that's really wiser and smarter and more interesting than ever before, and more astute.
Really?
We're blurring lines between disciplines. The areas students come into our program now from a fine arts position, from a very traditional kind of a vocational position, and we work out a kind of approach that is mutually respectful and I think satisfying for the students as they go through the curriculum. So we're into some very interesting areas in education.
Sounds interesting, yeah. Kind of cutting edge of some of the stuff.
We would hope so.
Some raw figures. I mean, how many folks are in your program, or students that are trying to make their way through this and graduate?
There's about half the school is in design, a quarter in fine arts, and about a quarter in media arts, or slightly less in media arts.
And is this hundreds of students, or I'm not familiar with your enrollment or anything?
There's
560.
560.
At the college as a whole?
Right, and there's in the upper divisions, there are about 125 in media arts, 140 in fine arts, and
I don't know, somewhere between 150 and 180, it varies.
yeah.
It's hard to tell because there are students who take courses in design that are in fine art or in media art, so it's hard to really identify.
Okay. We've only got a few more minutes, and I wanted to cover a few things, including some of the other things that go on besides the specific disciplines and divisions. You've got what I would call a continuing education component. Right. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
I can probably tell you a little bit that this is really our outreach program. Continuing education means that anyone who's interested in the whole spectrum of the visual arts is able, for either a 2-day workshop or once a week for 10 or 12 weeks, or during the summer or on Saturdays, to be involved in any of the activities that we do at the school. And so they are more accessible in small increments. You don't have to be a full-time Bachelor of Fine Arts degree tracking students to learn about computers or about in the media arts, photography, or to study painting, or any of the something like 73 different courses that we offer. Another outreach program is our gallery, where the Twin Cities community gathers when we have some really major exhibitions that are usually directed at the young person, emerging artists in all fields. And so it is a kind of small matrix where the different vectors of culture gather.
I've been to a few of those, and there are vectors running around there. Hazel, I've got a question. Oh, did you have something?
Well, I was going to add to that, because recently, and I think it may be up right now, a student exhibition at Uptown. In the Uptown shopping center, there's a Calhoun Square.
Okay.
That's right.
It was a jury exhibition, and it's been so successful, it's going to be continued, I understand.
Yes.
Now.
Will that
We're gonna have
continue
some
into
more.
March?
Well, periodically we'll have
I see.
exhibits there.
Okay,
the
so that's a
ongoing.
venue to come and see some of the work.
And another, a permanent place to see some of MCAD students' works is at the Garden of Sculpture in the Hamlin Garden of Sculpture.
Oh, over in St. Paul?
Yes.
Okay.
In that area, there's a park there that some developers, the Van Landshoots, have worked with Michael Bigger who to install our students' large-scale
cooperative
sculpture
relationship there.
Yes, there's a
Great.
wonderful transformed tree that one of our students did.
Oh, I
in
try and get
that
to
park.
see that.
Mhm.
One or
It's
two
my
more
park.
questions, and I want to spring something on Russ. Dreams for the future, issues that might be on the horizon for either your division or the college. Will the student coming into MCAD 10 years from now have a whole different world or different issues to see, or is the
Yeah,
college moving in a new direction?
Well, the college, the design division is beginning to shift its direction somewhat in terms of where designers are going to be working. I think the whole issue of multimedia is going to be a big one for designers to work in. I think another major shift has to do with the global shift, that we're not going to be just dealing with corporate America and kind of a Euro approach to design. With demographic shifting, designers are going to have to be dealing with very, very different kinds of user groups. And so we're going to have to train designers differently on a much more global level.
Okay, and Tom mentioned that blurring a little bit of some of the boundaries of the disciplines.
Right, and one of the new initiatives that we're beginning to move really much closer to is a graduate program. That's going to be in its structure very responsive to the community, very responsive to people being able to work through a graduate experience on a contractual basis, and very goal-specific directions that the institution can support. And I think it's going to make us a real strong provider in that area in the next couple of years.
Tom, if people wanted more info about that, or the first-year program, or anything we've talked about, there's a number they can call.
Right.
We're going to see that right now.
Right.
What is that number?
874-3700, right?
Let's say that again, 874.
874-37, everybody is the last half of it.
00.
00.
There we go.
874-3700.
Well, you heard it from the right folks. I want to thank you all for coming and being part of
Thank you, Phil.
Artifacts.
This is great.
And we'll look
Thank
for
you.
all of you and some of the work over at MCAT. Russ,
pleasure.
thanks. Good. Now, next month on Artifacts, we're going to expand the show to an hour long. We're going to do a special show. We're going to include a panel to discuss the issue of arts education. And if between now and then you'd like to call in a question or pose a conundrum for our panelists, why don't you call the Artifacts hotline, which is 673-2234, and we'd like to put your questions about arts education to our panel. So you'll see us next time on Artifacts, and stay tuned for a short calendar of events in the Twin Cities.